former official in the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, Steve Gill. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Scotty.
Now, we do have this Trump deal in Mexico, but I got to talk about Chuck Grassley's comments that he just made. What do they say to you about the rip going on right now within the Republican Party and President Trump and the senators regarding trade and tariffs and how they affect their specific states?
Well, everybody in Washington wants to have their hands on the reins of power, and any of these senators that feel like either a fellow senator or the executive branch are getting a leg up on them wants to kind of rein things back in, no pun intended, to their own power, their own control. And I think the senators want to make sure that the president is not being able to implement policies that might affect their particular state when they have a vested interest in only what affects their state rather than looking at perhaps the big picture.
Well, and it's basically, we saw that the President Trump right now is headed actually to what we consider to be flyover states right now. You've been following their trip. What is some of your idea when you look at who actually boarded the plane that will be traveling with President Trump, and what does that kind of tell you? What are some of your predictions?
Yeah, I got to tell you, it struck me when you saw the Secretary of Agriculture that's accompanying the president to Iowa. You've got Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa, another senator from Nebraska, other agriculture and EPA officials. You know, the president, when they announced that they had this tariff deal late Friday with Mexico, noted that there were going to be big agriculture announcements as well, that Mexico had agreed to buy a lot of U.S. agriculture products as part of the deal. Well, the largest agricultural export from the U.S. to Mexico is corn, and the president's flying right into the center of corn country. For some reason, my spidey sense says that if not today, sometime soon, we're going to get an announcement of some sort of a big deal where Mexico is going to buy even more agriculture and particular corn products. And I can't think of a better way, if it was me in charge, to make an announcement than while the president's in Iowa in the middle of corn country.
Well, and Stephen, some of those folks who you mentioned on that plane are not necessarily advocates of the president, his biggest cheerleaders within the Republican Party. So whether he does or does not, I guarantee it makes for very tense and possibly awkward conversations on the way there, and if they are allowed back on, flying back. But I do want to move us on to this Mexico and Mexico averting tariffs on Mexican goods. Do you think that opens the door to quick congressional approval of the new NAFTA and the USMCA, something that we don't know necessarily was going to be so easy?
Well, it should open the door to a quick approval by Congress. You now have Canada that's signed on to the deal. Mexico has agreed to the deal, and President Obrador in Mexico is encouraging a quick passage of the, quote, new NAFTA, or this U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal. You know, the president on the campaign trail promised he would fix NAFTA, he would get a new NAFTA, and this is an opportunity for him to deliver on that big promise. And the only thing holding it up right now are Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in the House. It'll pass the Senate handily. The Mexican government, the Canadian government will all pass it. And I think the challenge for Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in the House is, do they give the president another win, let him fulfill another campaign promise, or do they block it and hurt their chances in these Rust Belt states like Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, that are dependent upon a better trade deal with Mexico to maybe revive some of their economies? So the Democrats are in a hard place. Either they block a deal that would help their constituents and help President Trump, or they pass a deal that helps President Trump by passing the deal.
Well, and those voters are extremely valuable for multiple reasons, but those are the voters that I think actually put President Trump in his office in 2016. No one expected some of the Democrats, especially those labor union Rust Belt workers who had lost their jobs to Mexico, to actually vote for Republicans. Some of them for the first time in their lives and in generations vote for Republicans. So I think there is a huge risk there of that. But do Democrats really care about that? What's more important to them, does it seem like right now when you're watching the bickering going on in D.C.? Do they care about putting a win, even if the win is for all of America, or are they more about just stopping it right now and being able to have their own chance to craft a bill and take claim and glory for it to the way they want it to be?
Well, you've got the Republican strategists that are carefully looking at the words that have been said, the videos they have of different Democrats who've been saying, we need to avoid these tariffs with Mexico, we need to have more trade with Mexico, and then are they going to vote against this free trade deal with Mexico? You have a lot of these issues that are particularly, as you point out, in those battleground states, the Pennsylvanias, the Wisconsins, the Michigans, that President Trump won narrowly. Those blue-collar, usual Democrat voters that flipped over to President Trump in the last election will stay with him if he continues to deliver